My name is Brittnie Bassant, President and CEO for Chamber South, and today I have with me Dr. Rina Santi. She is the licensed clinical psychologist, clinical director, and co-founder at Monarch All Health. I got it.
Yes.
Hey, I did it. I read off the screen. But I did it. Yay. So thank you so much, Dr. Rina. I'm just going to call her Dr. Rina for the rest of the interview. Thank you so much for being here, for joining us this morning. So excited to have you on and chat a little bit about you and, of course, about Monarch All Health. And so just to start off, I really want our guests and our audience to get to know you on a personal level. So kind of walk me through your journey, like personal and professional, kind of blend it together. Like where were you born? Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? And then how'd you get into being all of those things, including the co-founder of Monarch All Health?
Well, good morning, Brittnie, and thank you so much for having me here.
Absolutely.
Well, I was born in Rio Piedras, Puerto Rico.
My goodness.
Yes.
That just rolled off your tongue. Puerto Rico. But where in Puerto Rico?
Rio Piedras.
Wow.
So it's actually San Juan now.
Oh, okay.
They've pretty much blended into San Juan.
Okay, very cool.
So easier, San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Oh, I like the way that you say it better. It's so lyrical and so beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I lived there till I was about 4 or 5 years old, and then we moved to the States. I lived in New Jersey, in Patterson, for about 8 years.
So when you moved from Puerto Rico, you went to New Jersey directly?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
My father was transferred there with his job. We moved to Patterson, New Jersey, and then I came to Miami when I was about 10, 11 years old.
And that was with your family? Dad got transferred again?
Yep, Dad got transferred again.
So that's when you moved to Miami?
Yep, we came right around the time of Miami Vice.
Oh my
I'll
goodness.
never forget.
Wow. Don't date yourself though. Don't let people figure it out. Careful. They can do some quick math.
I am okay with that. It's not a problem. So I basically attended high school here in Miami and college as well. I went to Barry University.
Oh, wow. Great.
Where I received my bachelor's. And then I went to Nova Southeastern University where I received my doctorate in clinical psychology.
Wow.
I then did I did my 1-year internship as part of my doctoral program in Puerto Rico at the VA.
You went back.
I did. And I did my internship at the VA. It was amazing. I was living with my dad while we were there. So it was definitely wonderful.
In Puerto Rico?
My father does, and my extended family, yes.
That's exciting.
Yes.
That's a really full circle moment.
It really is.
To be able to come to the United States, to get the education, to sort of like get all of the things that you need, and then to be able to go back home and use those skills to help, the people in your country. I love that.
I loved it. It was definitely an experience.
And especially at the VA too.
Yes.
Like what?
Yes, it was at the VA.
So you're just layering on so many amazing things.
Thank you.
What a beautiful journey.
You. And then I went to Lincoln, Nebraska. Talk about a change. And
I did
a 2-year residency in Lincoln, Nebraska. My direct supervisor there was Dr. Matthew Nicetti. And I learned at that time, which was the area of focus that I wanted to do in my career. Because at one point I thought I wanted to work with divorced families, family therapy, things of that nature. But after doing my residency in that area, I realized, you know what? I really want to hone in on the ages 0 to 5. Because I realized how important early intervention was. So many times a lot of mental health professionals or even medical professionals will say, oh, no, wait until they turn 5, and then we'll see how it goes. I couldn't disagree more with that. Early intervention is the key. Even if it's just a simple assessment, you can figure out what little things need to change. It could be something as simple as having a new bedtime routine.
That's crazy.
Let's get the bedtime routine, or let's, instead of doing timeout, let's try this. A little tweak here and there when they're 2 or 3 years old can make the huge difference as far as any challenges that you might have once they get older.
Yeah.
So for 10 years, I've basically focused on that area before starting my own mental health center, Monarch All Health.
Wow, and you said that was 10 years?
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing. And I love that you talk about that. And I think for a long time, there's always been the stigma about like, oh, it's just, kids being kids or whatever the case may be. And our community has really come a long way in recognizing that there's mental health and there's a spectrum of mental health, and it can be something very small, like you said, a small change and a small tweak can make all the difference.
Absolutely.
And we're getting so much better at recognizing that early intervention and making those changes to ensure the success of all of our community members, all of our individuals. So I love that. That's so important in being able to nurturing a strong community. So how long were you in Nebraska?
I did a 2-year residency in Nebraska.
And then you came back to Miami?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Awesome. All right, perfect. Wow. That's amazing. So when you were a little girl, like growing up, 5 years old or so, let's talk about 5 years old, what if someone said, hey, Dr. Rina, well, they would have been, hey, Rina, hey, Rina, what do you want to be when you grow up? What would you have said?
Well, exactly what I want, it's hard to remember when I was a child, but I do know I've always had a love of animals. I mean, Absolute love. I was always raised with cats, and I just loved observing them, watching them, seeing how they interact, how they do things, just seeing their communication, because they don't talk. But yet they communicate behaviorally.
Of
so I
course,
guess
absolutely.
I always had some type of interest in behavioral psychology, not recognizing it. So
behavioral psychology in animals.
Exactly,
How
exactly.
crazy.
So
I love
that was probably love for animals. When you're a child, you think veterinarian.
I know. So I'm the same. We were talking about this briefly earlier because I don't like to chat with my guests too much before the show because I want it to be an organic conversation. But the love of animals is an underlying theme. And it was the same thing when I was little. I loved animals. I think I wanted to be a marine biologist because I just wanted to play with dolphins. I could never go the vet route because I'm like, well, what if it's sick and I can't help it? And then I get too emotionally attached, and I completely understand
Well,
that.
I have to tell you what happened with me. When I was in undergraduate school, I initially started saying I wanted to be a pediatrician because, yes, I loved animals, but I also really liked working with kids. Always liked that, but I thought I was going to be a medical doctor. So I started pre-med in undergraduate, and I did about 3 years of pre-med, never took a psychology course.
3 years
I
of
did
pre-med?
3 years of pre-med. I made it all the way up to
That's
organic
so
chem
intense.
2.
That's intense.
It is. It was. It really was. And that's part of what kind of dissuaded me a little bit because it wasn't coming naturally for me. And as much as I wanted it, it wasn't coming naturally for me. That was really upsetting. So I said, okay, I'm going to try something. I'm going to volunteer. I'm going to volunteer in this area and see how well I do. So I volunteered at an emergency room, and I didn't last very long. Once I saw blood,
Oof.
I kind of got very pale and almost passed out.
Oh, my goodness.
And I said, that's not a good sign.
They don't make you work with blood in like year 1 of pre-med? Like, let's just see how this person handles blood.
No, I was literally standing there. They brought someone in. They were going to do something. I think trauma. I don't remember what it was. I just remember the person. I'm shaking just thinking about it.
Okay,
the person was laying there, and I saw blood, and I'm like, I gotta go.
Excuse me.
I can't watch this. And I said, okay, time to change majors. I took one psychology course, and I was like, wow. It just went.
Because that was your underlying theme throughout your childhood.
And I didn't even realize
Observing it.
Absolutely loved it. But before that, then I did pre-vet. I was like, okay, I love animals. I'm going to do pre-vet.
There's still blood with animals too,
I know,
Dr.
but
Rina.
it's an animal. I didn't exactly right. You would think I didn't last very long. 2 semesters. I volunteered at a shelter, and they, of course, being a volunteer, being pre-vet, they're like, okay, I'm going to let you work with the animals. I couldn't so much as give them a shot. I wanted to play with them. I wanted to cuddle with them. I would give them a shot, like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. And then they brought in an animal that was completely torn up from a dog fight, and I was in tears, and I'm like, I can't do this.
Yeah, it's tough.
I can't do this.
I have a lot of respect for people that work in with animals in that regard, and also in like the social causes. They do a lot of work with nonprofits, and so people that work with kids, or people that work with like foster children or homelessness. I get so emotionally attached to these things that I have to like be. I got to work in economic development. Like that's, you can't really get that emotionally attached to economic development. You can, believe me, you can, and business growth. But I have a lot of respect and appreciation for people who can handle that, because it really does take a certain level of grit and tenacity.
It really does
to be able to do that. You and I have so many similarities, because
we do.
I was supposed to do law. My parents kind of, sorry, mom and dad, but they really pushed me into like going to law school. I didn't want to, but that's just what I was told that I had to do. And so I was like a good little daughter, like, okay, I'll go to law school. And I did an undergrad of pre-law, and I was like, I really like this. And it dissuaded me. I was like, this is not my passion.
Yeah, it's just not resonating.
Yeah, so wow, there's so many underlying themes here. So now I'm really, we talked about it a little bit. What are you the most passionate about? And I know animals and a love for animals is
Absolutely.
a huge part of it.
Animal activist, 100%. I see, in fact, this morning we saw, I was driving my daughter to school, we saw a little stray dog. She's like, Mommy, if the dog is still there after school, can we pick it up? I said, absolutely. Don't get mad at me, Dad. I said, absolutely, we can pick up the dog and take it over to Eddie's dogs, and he'll take care of it.
I know Eddie's dogs. Yes.
You do? I got my dog from, I got my dog, Honey, from Eddie's dogs.
I've taken dogs to Eddie's dogs.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, absolutely. I love Eddie's dogs.
I was just talking to him yesterday because I had a neighbor who had these little puppies, or who had a friend with French bulldogs that they were going to euthanize them because they didn't want the dogs anymore.
Aww.
So I immediately called Eddie's dogs, and he was like, give me their number, I'll take them. So yeah, I got my dog from Eddie's dogs.
Oh my gosh, how beautiful! I love Eddie's dogs. Yes, I've taken dogs there. I was actually just driving down. I'm not okay. This is where like Brittnie's a little crazy comes out. So I was driving down 216th. I live in Cutler Bay currently. I'm moving to Miami Beach. This is a whole other story. But I was driving down 216th towards Old Cutler Road, and it was late at night, and there was this big black dog, and I didn't realize that there was a dog in the street. The traffic pattern was disturbed a little bit. Didn't realize there was a dog in the street. So I'm driving down, and I pass the dog, and he's like the sweetest thing. He's just like walking up to the cars. He's in the middle of the road. It's dark, and he's black. And this big black dog, and I'm like, oh my God, this dog is gonna die. And so I have the tiniest car, and I'm just like, what am I gonna do with this gigantic dog? And I have a cat, and I'm like, none of these things are resonating in my head. I'm just like, gotta get the dog. So I make a U-turn, and then as I'm driving back, and he's on the other side of the street, I see a police officer, and I'm like, okay, he's gonna stop and pick up the dog. I'm gonna be off the hook. And the police officer drives by, and I'm like, nah, I gotta get the dog and chase out the police officer and be like, sir, what are you doing? Take the dog, please. Thankfully for everyone in my life, because they would have all had to jump in this regard, a very good Samaritan, whoever the man was in the white BMW on 216th and Old Cutler just a couple of days ago, just stopped, opened the door. The dog was just like, hey, new friend, jumped in the car, and the guy drove off. And I'm like, oh, thank God.
Goodness.
But yes, I mean, that's, I believe in the good of humanity. Absolutely. And that there are people out there that will do those things, and that's a big, but yes, I'm no longer allowed to bring home stray animals.
Yeah, if it were up to me, our house would be a shelter. So likewise. Boundaries have been set, and I respect that.
Likewise. So that's why I just have really strong, you need to just become really good friends with people like Eddie's dogs.
Exactly. Have really a network. There's a network.
Rescue organizations, and that's what we do here at the Chamber. We promote those local rescues, those people like Eddie, like Pause for You, those people that are getting in their cars and getting in their trucks and going out there and taking care of the needs of our community. And not a knock to the Humane Society, not a knock to ASPCA. They're doing amazing work across the country.
Absolutely.
But we need to really champion our local heroes here because they're incredible. So big shout out to Eddie's dogs.
Absolutely.
He's probably like, what the heck is going on? Okay, awesome.
You can find him, Google his phone number.
I know, just Google. That's how I found him.
EDDY''S.
Yes, that's how I found him. I just did,
so did I. That's exactly
Google
how we found him too.
Because I found a dog in the Redland, and I'm like, all right, got a dog, and it was like a Sunday. It was a Sunday night, and
well, we were looking to adopt a dog, and it was so hard because it had to be a small 20-pound dog. We couldn't get a big dog. I went to the Humane Society. They didn't have anything. I was like, how is this possible? I'm going through so much trouble to adopt a dog. I see them all the time. But then when I wanted a dog, I couldn't find one. I was able to get one through Eddie, and my honey, our sweet little girl, she was all in Georgia. She's a Chiweenie, so she's a Dachshund Chihuahua.
Oh my gosh!
Yes, and I normally she would even be here with me, but I told her she's not allowed.
We've had dogs on the show. I'm
no,
not,
my daughter will be so upset I didn't bring her.
I'm not going to be biased, but I am. I've had a number of amazing guests on the show, but my favorite guest ever was Charlie, and it was a dog that someone
totally
brought, and I put a little chair and I put a little microphone, and I just talked to Charlie the whole time. And I'm sorry for the guest that day. He had to run his own interview because I was distracted. I just talk about whatever you want to talk about. I'm going to play with Charlie.
Honey goes with us when I go to the office at Monarch All Health. She goes,
and I'm sure she's very helpful, because let's talk now about Monarch All Health. So we need to stop talking about rescue dogs and all these other partners. We need to focus
I also
on you
have
guys.
a passion for the conservation of the earth, also. Nature conservation, Mother Earth, Mother Nature, all that.
I always ask people, what are you passionate about? And I get different answers, right? I'm really passionate about animal welfare. And I'm on a broader level because I work a lot with the zoo, but I love all animals, right? And people have a passion for, homelessness. They have a passion for specific, healthier causes, like whether it's breast cancer because they have a very personal experience with that, or someone that they know. So everyone has a passion for something different. I think that's so important, because I know that I'm going to carry the torch for animal welfare, and somebody else is going to carry the torch for homelessness, and somebody else is going to carry the torch for disabilities, and together we will light the world, and that's amazing.
Yes, I love that. Yes.
But someone told me, and I don't even think he was trying to be, snarky or whatever, but I was having a conversation with him, and I'm like, what are you passionate about? And he's like, I'm really passionate about the environment and the earth and planet Earth and climate change and Mother Nature. And I'm like, yes, I am too. I'm a huge environmentalist and conservationist. I worked a lot with organizations locally here to protect our Everglades. And he's like, because really, I know you love animals, Britt, but if the Earth doesn't exist anymore, if we kill the planet Earth, it doesn't matter what you're passionate about at that point, it's all gone.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, you're right. It all if we don't take care of this one Earth that we have, then all of those other causes are kind of auxiliary to having a place to live and being able to do all of these things. So very important, I think.
Well, I don't know that I would put a hierarchy on it. Yeah. I think that you don't need to be passionate about conservation to just be aware and do small parts to make your own change to help with it. Just understanding, recognizing, and say, okay, I won't use this plastic today.
Small changes.
Exactly.
Small changes add up, where small changes can make a huge impact.
Absolutely.
Okay, we've talked about everything except your business. And we need to talk about your business. I'm sorry. But it's great because I love the conversations going so well. Okay, so Pretend that I know nothing about Monarch All Health.
Okay.
And tell me everything that there is to know about this organization that you co-founded and you built from the ground up.
Absolutely.
How long have you guys been around?
6 years.
6 years. So go. Floor is yours.
So Monarch All Health. Monarch All Health started just shortly after I had my little girl. She's now 7 years old. That's how I always remember how many years. It's 1 year less than her.
Oh, okay.
So after I had my little girl, I was pregnant. I had my little girl, and I said, you know what?
Do you only have one daughter?
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, I'm an older mom. I have built my career. I am cool with putting my career on hold so that I can be a full-time mom. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
That was my thought. Her father had different thoughts.
Father was like, oh, that's what you think's going to happen.
Exactly.
Well, yeah.
He found this beautiful property, and of course, he shows it to me very, as we would say in Spanish, disimulado. Like, oh, no, I'm just going to walk around and just show it to you. And I'm looking around.
We're just window shopping this property.
I'm just showing you this property
Where is this
that I
beautiful
just
property?
obtained. It's in Homestead.
Okay.
It's in downtown Homestead area. And
thriving community,
Yes.
bustling community, up and coming, big time.
And I looked around, I was like, holy cow, this place would make a great mental health center, is what I'm thinking to myself. As I'm strolling my newborn baby around all this mess, because it did not look anything of what it looks like right now.
Had you guys been talking about this? Like, were there ever conversations about, like, hey, let's open up our own facility?
Years ago.
And then just, like, randomly one day, he's like, hey, come look at this empty space with me?
Yes, his psychology works that way, because he knows me very well. You can't overwhelm me. If you overwhelm me, I shut you down. And he knows me quite well. So he waited until the dust had settled, and I was kind of like, calm, and he walks me around, and I looked, and I'm like, this would make a great mental health center. And he's like, so let's do it. And I'm like, hello, baby, decided to quit my job. I'm going to be a full-time mom. What do you mean? And he's like, well, you don't have to do it. We can hire people to do it. And I'm like, huh? I was like, okay. Long story short, I said, here's the deal. This sounds like an amazing opportunity. I think we'd make a great team. But I am not letting go of Shaili, my daughter. So I need to be able to take care of her. He says, not a problem. One of the offices will be her bedroom. And I'm like, really? He was like, oh, yes. So we literally converted one of the offices into her bed. It had a bed. It had...
like a nursery.
It was a total nursery. And I was able to basically go to work. We had a psychologist that would work there. And I did everything. I was the billing. I was the front office. I was basically running
As it is when you have a startup.
Exactly. While I had literally a baby on me. So I would go to the office and nurse her in her room, put her down for a nap, have my little walkie on me in case she woke up. And I would have patients come in, and she'd start crying. I'm like, just give me 1 sec. I'll be right with you. Close the window, run to the room, brush her, feed her, put her back down to sleep, come back out. How can I help you? Wow. So I basically did that.
What a journey. Does she still have a room at the office?
No, once she started school.
Shucks.
Yeah, no, once she started school, she didn't need
sort of
it
like
anymore.
Just like a safe space for anyone who needed it.
Well, it turned into kind of like a multi-purpose room for the providers and for patients as well. So if it's kind of like a spillover room.
It's still serving a very important purpose. Yeah.
So for about 3 years, I basically did all of that until I started seeing patients there myself, just for assessments, because I couldn't commit to the therapy because of my daughter. She always remained a very big part, and I still remain a very big, mom role. And now I have to also be with the school and very involved. I'm extremely involved, and now also running the business. But our business has grown exponentially.
I can imagine.
Exponentially. We now have over 30 providers. We now have different departments.
Have you grown locations, or are you still in that same spot in Homestead?
No, we're still in that same spot. What we do have telehealth providers throughout the entire state of Florida.
Telehealth is the future.
Yes.
It's incredible.
We have,
and especially what you're doing, I think it's easier to do a telehealth. You know what I mean?
Well, it depends. There are some cases that would benefit best from in-office, which has been a little bit of a challenge to find providers that are, with COVID, everybody got used to working from home.
Yes.
And I get that. Yeah. But there's just some cases, like the little ones under the age of 5.
Of course.
Certain diagnoses, such as autism. I will not see a child or assess anyone for potential autism or ADHD via telehealth.
Absolutely
I refuse. I know that there are some mental health providers out there that do that, and I feel that that's a professional choice. My professional choice is I feel that because it's primarily a social disorder, I need to see you socially. Yes. I need to see how you interact with me, not how you interact with the computer screen.
Exactly.
So my personal opinion and clinical, I feel that it's best to do it in person. So those cases are the ones that I will have in office. And then, of course, there's also therapy cases. Some parents prefer it. They don't want the technology anymore. They want them to physically be seen in the office.
Good.
So luckily we have ample space, ample offices at our Homestead location.
I don't know if you have this number, but like how many patients do you serve, maybe on like an annual basis or That's a tough number, right?
That is a tough number.
What about on a monthly basis?
I could tell you on a weekly.
Basis, okay. We can just do math, guys.
I think on a weekly we're at like about maybe a little over 100.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that's what I said. I was like, holy cow, that's a lot. But our billing department is like, yeah, you've grown. I'm like, sorry, we'll get you help. So we're hiring.
You're hiring?
Yes.
What
yes.
are you hiring?
Oh, gosh.
Everything.
What aren't we hiring? We are looking for specialists, particularly EMDR. We have one EMDR specialist.
What is EMDR?
Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So I know, that was a lot of information.
Let's just give it back to EMDR.
EMDR.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
So essentially, one of the things that sets Monarch apart from other mental health centers is that we have pretty much within our over 30 providers, we have people that specialize in different areas, such as EMDR. EMDR is very trauma focused. So it's all about recognizing the trauma, re-experiencing it, but redirecting the way that the brain processes it.
When you say like trauma, this is me just getting really technical and looking at time now because I'm just like, tell me more. When you say trauma, like, how does that relate to like PTSD? Is that similar in that regard, or like is it a different kind of trauma? Like, explain that a little bit more.
So trauma is individually based. Trauma can be a car accident. Trauma can be the loss of a pet. Trauma can be sexual trauma. It could be anything for anyone. Trauma within itself is individualized to that person. It's all about how the person is experiencing and or re-experiencing whatever happened. If it's something that they have flashbacks, something that they're trying to actively avoid, that's more along the lines of a diagnosis of PTSD. But there are very different ways that people will experience trauma. It's not only through PTSD.
Okay, interesting. And sorry, in terms of like, I know you focus a lot on early intervention, right?
Yes.
You're on the 0 to 5 age range, but what's the clientele that you start, like in terms of age range?
All
and
ages.
Everyone.
Once again, because we have over 30 providers, we have people that specialize in working with the elderly. We have people that specialize in working with depression, anxiety, medication management, speech therapy services. I specifically do diagnostic evaluations. So if you need to, and that's a big one that's happening right now, especially with autism. You know, because of the COVID pandemic, a lot of the little ones that in the middle of when they needed to be socialized were not able to be socialized. So now the question is it because that they behaviorally were not exposed that they're not socializing, or is there a neurological issue happening here? I'm like, I can look at the behaviors, I can look at that, but the best way is a diagnostic assessment, not just a little checklist. I highly encourage anyone who has a child that they are not sure, is this autism, is this ADHD, what's happening here? Get psychometric testing. Do not just do a little checklist that is given either on the internet or anywhere else you would go, because those checklist behaviors can all be because of other things that might be happening. There's sensory processing disorders. There's behavioral disorders. Children are not going to respond the same way that adults respond.
And every single person, like by virtue, is an individual. Like everyone's different. We're all different, and so that's extremely important. So 0 to 5, of course, early intervention is key.
Yes,
that's what we were talking about earlier. Early intervention is key, but really just making sure. Like I love that. If you are not sure about something, if you don't know as a parent, or as a guardian, or as someone who's responsible for this individual, you know, reach out to you guys and get that testing done, because it's so important.
One of the things I wanted to also emphasize was ABA therapy.
I was going to say, we need to talk about ABA.
Yes.
I knew that was on my list.
Yeah. So ABA therapy is primarily used for people who have been diagnosed with autism. I want to emphasize.
So this is after they've been diagnosed.
So I'll run you down basically the way that it works.
Tell me the whole story. Yes.
But first of all, ABA, I want to be very clear, is not only for someone who has autism. Unfortunately, right now, and I'm hoping that this will change, the insurance companies primarily will only cover it if they have autism. However, ABA therapy can be very beneficial for someone with ADHD, behavioral challenges, behavioral disorders, conduct disorders, and at school, at home. ABA is extremely beneficial. It is a strict, structured behavioral type of therapy. But how does it work? In order to obtain ABA therapy, the first thing you need is a diagnosis. Autism, in order for the insurance to cover it. So you can get a diagnosis either from a neurologist or a psychologist. Most neurologists, and I will not say all, but most neurologists, even though they diagnose it, because they are not behaviorally trained, and psychologists are, and that's the trick part. And this is the part that I've even had arguments with insurance companies. Autism is a neurological disorder that is behaviorally diagnosed. It seems simple, right? You're talking about two completely different professions. Neurological disorder, neurologist. Behaviorally diagnosed, psychologist. Medical, mental health. Insurance companies have a huge divide there.
I have a question. Do you have any neurologists on your team?
No, but they will be next.
Not yet.
Not yet.
That's a not yet question.
Not
okay,
yet.
good. Perfect. Because I'm
Not
like,
yet.
then you can just bring it all under one roof.
I've actually considered going to medical school and becoming a neurologist myself.
Oh.
I have considered it.
She was like,
I have my
I'll
daughter.
be the neurologist.
I can be the neurologist. I get that mindset from my supervisor, Dr. Matthew Nassetti, or my ex-supervisor, Dr. Matthew Nassetti. He's actually our collaborative physician now.
I love that though, because like that, I think it's so important because you can bring it all under one roof, and then you're making it easy for the client, for the people that you're serving. Just be like, hey, just come here and we will figure it out.
And that's the idea. That was basically my vision with Monarch. One of the things I noticed when I worked in a bigger company for almost 10 years, I was there about 9.5 years, was just how challenging it was for these families to obtain services. I would evaluate a family and then I'd say, okay, go here for behavioral therapy, go there for individual therapy, you need family therapy, you need this, you need that. Everybody was going all over the place. At Monarch All Health, we have all the services in one place, especially for those that are seeking ABA therapy. So you start with the diagnosis. Most times the neurologist will tell you you need to see a psychologist. That's me. You come to Monarch.
So if the neurologist refers, then you refer over to the psychologist. Because again, your insurance is going to cover all of this for the most part.
Right.
And you guys will work with them on that because you have that team for billing and everything
Correct.
else. Okay, just make sure.
So for the most part, the neurologist will then say you need to see a psychologist for a diagnosis. I will then do the gold standard assessment, which is the ADOS and the ADIR. I will get the diagnosis, and then once they have the diagnosis from the psychologist, now we move you to our BCBA, board certified behavioral analyst.
There we
BCBA.
go.
Sorry.
I love knowing what the anagrams stand for, or what the acronyms stand for. Sorry, not anagrams. Acronyms stand for, because then it helps me understand it.
Board certified behavior analyst.
Yeah.
So now the BCBA goes in, and now which we have on staff, and then they go ahead and analyze the situation, and now they're the ones who come up with the treatment plan. Once they have the treatment plan, now they have the RBT, our registered behavioral therapist. Now, the RBT is the one who actually goes into the home, school, or office to actually carry out the strict behavior plan that the BCBA put in place. So they continue. It's basically the therapy continues between the BCBA as the supervisor and as the one who's essentially running the show, okay? And the RBT goes in and actually carries out and does and tracks all of the behaviors that they see happening and the improvements to the BCBA. And the BCBA also provides parenting skills, also provides supervision, helps the parents and the RBT to help the child.
You said that they go into homeschool and office.
Yes.
So it's like an observational.
It's more than observation. They actually go in to provide therapy at the
Really?
school.
Really?
It's the only one that the insurance companies will cover is RBTs, ABA therapy in the home, in the school, and or at the office.
Wow,
Yes.
that's amazing.
And the insurance companies, for the most part, depending on how severe the case is and what the BCBA recommends, we're talking about up to 20 hours of therapy a week.
Wow, that's incredible. Wow, I could talk to you for hours, but I can't. I'm gonna talk to you for a little bit more than what the time that we have allocated, though, because I'm really curious. Is it just me going completely off script? I'm sorry, it's not gonna be that crazy. But your logo and of course the name, so the butterfly and the monarch. Tell me, I'm sure there's a story behind this.
There is a story behind it. So in our home, we have a butterfly garden in our backyard, and it's absolutely beautiful. And it's something that actually kind of came about once again after I had my little girl. After we had our little girl, and just it's when you look at the evolution of a butterfly, right? I mean,
and you're wearing the butterfly.
Yes, I am. So I mean, everybody learned this in school, right? You have the little egg, it turns into a cute little caterpillar, and then it turns into a chrysalis, and then from the chrysalis, it emerges. Now think of mental health. You know, everyone goes through stages in their life. Everyone goes through moments in their life. And you start as a tiny little egg, and you evolve, and you learn, and you grow until you finally, maybe when you're in the chrysalis, I need a little bit of help. I'm shut down. I need help right now. So come to Monarch.
Yeah.
You come to Monarch All Health, and we have all services specialized for you. You need someone who works specifically with adolescents? We have them. You need someone who works specifically with trauma, psychosis. You need diagnostic testing to get up on the therapy to figure out personality assessments, projective, objective. All of that is available at Monarch All Health. Do your children need help? Do your parents need help? All available at Monarch. We help you to make that change, make those goals, meet those goals that you want for yourself, so that once you're done, you emerge as a beautiful butterfly.
There's a beautiful saying, I think, that just when the caterpillar thought that its life was over, it became a butterfly.
Yes.
And listening to you talk, and I'm not a client or a patient of Monarch All Health, but listening to you talk, I can just tell that I'm sure that your clients and your patients feel this way, but feel very seen, very understood, feel like, okay, I'm at a point where someone is finally going to understand and help. And so I love that. I think
and that's
so
what
important.
I want. That's what I want. I mean, no matter how big we become, I strive and I make it, and anybody who works for me will tell you, I make it very clear, no patient is a number. Everyone matters.
And there's 100 a week, guys.
Every single patient matters, and if any patient feels otherwise, I will personally speak to them. But at Monarch, it's not only the patients, my providers.
Of course, the team.
My workers, the team. We do all kinds of activities for them. We do Monarch of the Month. We do Christmas parties, Thanksgiving parties. We're constantly, communicating with them via our group chat. Everyone is, because you keep them happy, you keep them healthy, and then everything just kind of flows.
And I love that, and we can't talk about it, but I always think about, especially with mental health professionals, I'm like, who's helping the mental health professionals? They're probably going through so much, right?
I make sure that they're okay.
Right, and it's so good to hear that you were stewarding that and taking care of your team, because that's so incredibly important to recognize that, like, yes, you're
mental
a mental health
is
professional.
Important for everyone, especially mental health providers.
But the mental health providers need the mental health help as well, too, or just to be someone that's aware of it and doing what's in their best interest.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I really need to close out the show. There's a big 0 on my timer. So sorry, this has gone a little bit longer, but it's such a great conversation. Thank you so much. So the way that we wrap things up here on Live with Brittnie is, I want to know, what is your personal philosophy, which is going to be really interesting because I feel like we've talked about so many amazing things. So what is your personal philosophy? What are the words that you live by every day?
Well, depending on the day, I will say I do have a few, but one of the ones that resonates with me both, honestly, is love and light.
Love and light?
Love and light.
You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
So days can be challenging, days can be difficult, but as long as you have that bright energy around you, you can always come back.
Of course.
You always come back. Love and light. You just have love for yourself, love for others, bright light, bright energy, and things will work out.
Yeah, I love that. And you said that days can be challenging. And there's someone, I like an Instagram influencer or a TikTok person or whatever that I've seen, and she always ends her videos, and she was like, and now make it a great day or have a great day. But if you can't have a great day, don't you go messing up somebody else's. And I love that. It's just like, she's so direct about it. She's like, have a great day, but sometimes you can't have a great day, but don't mess up anybody else's. But making sure that you just surround yourself with love and light, I think, is so important. And it's a beautiful sentiment to close out our show today, but encourage you guys to have an amazing Friday, an amazing weekend. Thank you again for joining us. This has been Live with Brittnie in partnership with our friends here at Miami Community Newspapers. Thank you, Dr. Rina.
Thank you.
Just want to make sure that, because we've talked about some amazing things, and I'm sure that there's people watching that have resonated with what you've said and what it is that you do. So if someone wanted to get a hold of you, reach out to you, come and see you, how would they connect with you?
So the best way to connect with us would be to call the office. We do have someone available Monday through Saturday, 786-521-5925. If you want to know more about the program itself, more about Monarch itself, we have all of our information, all of our programs and providers are on our website, which is our company name, Monarch All Health at
monarchallhealth.com.
Oh my God, I was giving you the email. Well, you could do that too at gmail.com.
monarchallhealth@gmail.com.
Basically, the website is monarchallhealth.com.
Yes. And then social media, Monarch All Health?
Yes, we are on Instagram and we're also on Facebook.
Perfect. So Monarch All Health across the board. Again, this has been Live with Brittnie in partnership with our friends here at Miami Community Newspapers. These shows are filmed every Friday morning at 10 a.m. So if you want to be on the next episode of Live with Brittnie, reach out to us at Chamber South. You can call us 305-661-1621, or you can email us at info